Since I recently reread the novelisation of Serenity, it got me thinking about what a hypothetical director's cut of the movie could look like. What tweaks could be made if, say, Universal were considering releasing a new version for the 20th anniversary of the movie in 2025. Not that I think that this is particularly likely, but I thought that it would be a fun exercise. So, the obvious first answer may be simply just add back in all the deleted scenes. But I don't think this is a good approach. Most of the deleted scenes from the movie don't seem to have been cut for time, but rather for efficiency of storytelling. They don't add a whole lot, and many just interrupt the momentum of the movie. So I'm not going to just suggest dumping all the deleted scenes back into the film. I also think the movie is pretty damn perfect as it is, so my suggested changes are going to be pretty modest. This isn't a George Lucas Star Wars Special Edition situation. And just to be clear, to set some rules, this isn't a rewrite or a totally abstract fantasy scenario, so all my choices have to be reasonably possible to achieve if this cut were to actually be made. So, for instance, I can't call for any scenes to be reshot. So, here's 4 changes I'd make to my favourite film. Probably my biggest gripe with the movie is the situation with the Naras Bow. So, in case you're unaware, in the Black Room scene, where the characters are fighting off the oncoming Reavers, Inara is armed with this sci-fi bolt thrower thing. Except, this shouldn't be there. Inara was supposed to use a pretty traditional bow and arrows. This was a very, very late change. Test audiences didn't like the bow, so they just CGI'd over it with this weird bolt thrower thing. In the wide shots, you can actually still see the bow. I guess they couldn't cheaply CGI in the bolt thrower in this angle, so they just coloured the bow black so it wouldn't stand out, and they digitally removed the string from Nara's face. So, in the new cut, I'm advocating for the original footage to be used without any of the CGI bolt thrower stuff. It was the original intention, it was the original authorial intent, and I think the bow and arrows just make much more sense for Inara. As a companion, it makes sense why she'd be trained with a bow and arrow, and why she'd be most comfortable using that in this situation. It's stated that companions are educated in swordplay. It feels like it follows that she'd be practiced with other traditional weapons too. It was a crazy change to make then, and it's still crazy. It needs to be rectified. Easy fix to make. I don't anticipate much pushback on this. On the topic of Inara, let me ask you a question. Where does Mal collect Inara from? What's the name of the planet? You don't know, do you? Well, that's because the planet that the companion training house is on is never named. Not in the movie, not in those left behind, not in any of the comics or novels. There's no canon name for this planet. And there's not really any good reason there shouldn't be. It's not like the planet doesn't have a name, or that it's an especially mysterious place. This just annoys me, so I want to find a way to give this planet a name. I don't even particularly care what the name is, I just want it named. Now, originally I thought about including the names of every planet they visit on screen, similar to how the first episode of Firefly did it, but then I realised there's a better way. So watch this clip.
Nara.
Is this a bad time?
No, it's as good as any. How's your world?
Cold. It's autumn here.
Still at the training house?
So when Mal says, "How's your world?" we change that to include the planet's name instead of world. And notice that when Mal says this, the camera is facing Inara. We don't actually see him saying those words. So it wouldn't be any problem with Mal's mouth not syncing up with the new line. It's a perfectly elegant solution. Call up Nathan Fillion, get him to record one word, maybe a whole line if he's feeling generous. You don't even need Nathan though. Just someone who sounds kinda like him. It's one word, spoken from off screen. You could edit that in seamlessly. And just to kind of further this argument, I think it's a much more natural thing for someone to say, "How's New York? How's London? How's California? How's England?" than it is for someone to say, "How's your city? How's your state? How's your country?" Mal gets away with it in the film because, he does talk kind of folksy. But my point is that it's not like this is introducing a natural turn of phrase for Mal to say. It's more normal that he would say the planet's name. So, presto, we finally get a name for Nara's planet. Thirdly, I want to draw out the first Haven sequence just a little bit. In the movie, the crew arrive on Haven, there's a very quick montage of them greeting the Haveners, and then we cut to Mal and Book's conversation. There was supposed to be a few more shots of life on Haven. It's in the screenplay, it's in the script, it's in the novelization. There's even a few brief deleted scenes, and for all I know, there's more unseen shots and more footage of Haven. I say, put these shots back in. Anything to give us more of an impression of Haven as this safe, nice, homely place. Let us see more of these people who are going to be brutally massacred later on. These are innocent people that the Alliance is going to needlessly slaughter in order to protect themselves. The more we see of the victims early on, the crueler that's going to feel later. These are friends of the crew, people who stuck their necks out to protect them. Later, the crew's cut up about what happens. Let's get the audience there too. And now, finally, the most significant change. I say, reinsert the operative's true final scene. In the theatrical cut, the last we see of the operative is this.
But I think they know I'm no longer their man.
They take you down. Don't expect to grieve over much. I'd like to kill you myself if I see you again.
You won't. There is nothing left to see.
But there's a deleted scene that follows immediately afterward.
There is nothing left to see. Serenity. You lost everything in that battle. Everything you had, everything you were. How did you go on?
You're still standing there when that engine starts. You never will figure it out. What a whiner.
My perspective is that both endings are great, but for different and nearly opposite reasons. And it's all to do with the future trajectory of this character. The Operative is one of my favourite characters. He's brilliant because of the way he's like a dark reflection of Mal. The Operative's story kind of rhymes with Mal's. At this point in the Operative's life, he's standing in his own Serenity Valley. He's lost the belief system that had defined him, just as we see happen to Mal in the first few minutes of Firefly. But the question is, now what? I feel like in the theatrical cut, which ends with the Operative saying, "There is nothing left to see," it feels like the Operative is just going to sort of evaporate. Without his belief, there's nothing left of this guy. He's just going to fade away. So his story in this case is a sort of there but for the grace of God, contrast to Mal's. Mal found a way to keep going after Serenity Valley, but the Operative can't. There's nothing left of him. However, if you continue the scene into the deleted section, where the Operative asks Mal exactly this question, how did you keep going after Serenity Valley? You introduce the idea that maybe this guy is thinking in this direction about how to make a life now that his belief system is gone. Maybe he can find a new path, and maybe one day a new meaning for his life. Maybe his path will follow a similar trajectory to Mal's after all. I like both endings. I think both are beautiful, both are poetic. However, here's why I think the new cut should go with the second option and reinstate the deleted scene. Leaves on the Wind brings back the Operative. Now personally, I actually think that was a bit of a mistake. They probably should have left the Operative alone. But like it or not, the Operative is not gone from the larger story. In fact, Leaves on the Wind takes place only 8 months later, and chronologically, at the moment, it's the first major story to take place after the movie. So, given the Operative does return to the stage, as it were, for me it now feels like it's more appropriate for the movie to intimate that the Operative does potentially have a future after all. So those are my thoughts for 4 little changes that I'd like to see in a new cut of Serenity. I think these tweaks would just slightly improve what is already a great film, while still maintaining the vast majority of the original vision. Thanks for watching, and as always, Stay shiny, folks.